Who was the real Henry, known as Harry Thompson? Thompson was a name used by Ned Kelly when selling stolen horses. This was the man in the story that Arthur Ferguson told me when I was 16. Of a man he saw with a beard down to his waist, wearing a 6-gun and leading stock horses into town to purchase supplies. The local legend grew after George Hadley of Mirewood on the Durham Road saw Harry riding past his property and recognised him by the way he rode his horse. He knew Steve Hart before coming to Queensland and said that he would recognise that style anywhere. To further the legend, a commercial traveller who'd moved from Victoria ran into Harry at Pine Hills and said to Mr. Couples, "You've got a bad neighbour. He's the bushranger Steve Hart. I'd know him anywhere. I went to school with him." Later on he told this conversation again at the Wallambilla pub. Harry had a lease on a property north of Wallambilla called Devil's Pulpit, named after a rock on Slate Hill Creek that looked like a pulpit. Coincidentally, in Kelly country, Aaron Sherritt was shot at the Devil's Elbow, Joe Burns' armour is thought to have been made at the Devil's Basin, and to top it off, there is also a Devil's Creek there. Harry was badly burned over his open fire and died in the Roma Hospital in August 1943. After his death, Harry was found to have old bullet wounds to his right elbow and left calf, as well as being badly scarred from much older burns. Locals remember various comments like, "I've been where the lead's been flying." He referred to Ned Kelly as the man they made bad, and they wouldn't have got them at Glenrowan except for the bastard being drunk. But he kept a photo of Ned in his hut, and he branded his cattle N2K and 2NK. Both Harry and Steve were about the same age, both about 5 foot 6 inches, with a hooked nose and piercing blue eyes. Whenever work was done on his property or groceries and supply bought for him, Harry always paid in gold sovereigns, telling them to wait in the hut until he came back in fear of their lives. Harry had a phobia about fire. Asked why Kate Kelly identified a charred body at Glenrowan as her brother Dan if he was alive, Harry replied, "Of course she did. Kate was no fool." When driving with a group, Harry was always the last to go to sleep and always slept away from the others, with a pistol and a knife beside him and his horse's reins in his hand. He never tied his horse up. One rainy night, the doctor from Wallambilla was driving into Roma and saw Harry asleep on a mound of dirt surrounded by 6 inches of water, sound asleep under his saddle and saddle blanket. The other drovers had taken rooms in a pub. Locals had many memories of Harry's unusual ways. Charles Tyndall, later claimed to be Dan Kelly, lived on the Darling Downs around Toowoomba, Jandowae and Bell in southeast Queensland. Studio portraits in Victoria show unusual long thumbs, evident on later photos, also marked by a family member as being Dan in a group photo. He received letters addressed to Dan Tinkle, he said, from his sister Kate. His new family wanted nothing more to do with him after he said who he was. Like Harry Thompson, he did not want any photographs taken of him. Ned Kelly called the black trackers Black Devils. These native police were from Fraser Island in Queensland. Their names differ in the various reports, but here we have photos taken in Melbourne and Beechworth, naming them as Jimmy, Jack, Johnny, Willie and Barney. Corporal Sambo died earlier from pneumonia before Glenrowan. Jimmy suffered a head wound at Glenrowan, and his 4 guineas doctor's bill was questioned by the government of the day. Their relentless pursuit of the Kellys over 2 years was one of the major factors for the final showdown at Glenrowan.
Ned Kelly's Colt revolving carbine was recovered at the Glenrowan Inn, and like the 1855 model Colt shown here, found in the Roma district, it has a shortened barrel and folding 300 and 600 yard backside leaves. The sawn-off muzzle was roughly recrowned with a knife blade. There is cord wrapping at the wrist, so it could be better held out and fired with one hand when sighting through the steel helmet eye view slot. When wearing the helmet and armour, any carbine could not be fired from the shoulder. The oil-finished butt is more heat affected on the left side, as it would be standing up against a wall or even laying on the floor, close to a fire. The other side is not so much scarred or heat affected. Crazing on both sides stops at the wrist, which is consistent with the tape binding covering it at the time. The top of the foresight shows wear, as it would in a saddle bucket. The sight likely replaced later, as Ned's carbine also has the end of the barrel sawed off. External finish at the muzzle shows it's fired thousands of shots. This confirmed by a gunsmith who recently reported badly worn sears, no half-cock, and a faulty indexing of the cylinder. The binding was flat cord from a lady's corset. They had a small steel tag for threading through the eyelet holes of the bodice. These tags had indents in the tin end to secure the tape inside, seen here marked at the wrist, in line with the tape. Ned's carbine has the tape binding. His sisters Maggie, Kate and Grace wore these tight corsets, very much the fashion at the time. A feature of many country Queensland Colt percussion revolvers, these are marks under the butt, where the revolver was often used as a convenient tool, like a hammer. This Allen's patent pepperbox revolver was passed down from Grace Kelly to the Griffiths and Ronke families, who lived next door to the Kellys at Greta, near Glenrowan. Issued to a police trooper at Beechworth, this 1851 model Colt Navy revolver would have been carried out on patrol, or maybe it was even used at Glenrowan.